What's going on? My name is Aaron, and Jordan Peterson just put out part one of his Exodus series for free on YouTube. Now, it's typically behind a paywall on Daily Wire, so your boy's kind of happy because I ain't got that money to pay for Daily Wire subscription, but I'm glad they're putting it on here so that we could react to it. And he's going to go over in this video the intro for Exodus, like the theme, the narrative theme for it. And we're just going to stop and go and talk about it. Now, I have nothing to add scholarly towards what they're already going to say. There's a whole bunch of eggheads in that room, and I have nothing to offer on that level. However, I'm a Christian Reformed pastor who teaches regularly and applies this stuff. So I really try to dumb it down for lizard brain terms so that I could teach it and apply it and help others do that. And so that's the approach I'll be taking. And I just want to let you know that so you don't expect anything crazy from me. But let's get right into this, and he'll talk about the narrative structure of Exodus.
One of the things that's really fascinated me about Exodus, apart from the fundamental structure of the narrative, which is escape from tyranny, sojourn through the desert, and then reemergence, hypothetically, into the promised land. It's a very classic narrative structure, descent and reascent, is the fact.
Well, just really quick, it's a classic structure because it was established by this. Like, Exodus is one of the oldest books in the world that we have reliably. And so it's a classic structure because this is the original, like descent and ascent. So yeah, let's just keep going.
That is the manner in which God is represented as the primary spirit in the text. And so I've been toying with this idea that part of what the Bible is doing is describing a priority, a manner in which perceptions and actions might be prioritized. And a structure of priority is a pyramidal structure, and something has to be at the top. And I learned from Carl Jung that whatever is at the top of your hierarchy of assumptions functions as God for you, whether or not you're religious. And maybe you have multiple things at the top, which just means that you're confused.
So he's talking about something that functions as a functional God for you if you prioritize it above anything else. So when we're talking about functional gods, I think about things that operate as functional gods for everyone. So when I was a teenager, my functional god was girls. All right, I was Homer Simpson simping around, right? So I was everything I did, I sacrificed to try to get a girl. I was consumed with the thought of trying to get a girl, and I was always trying to pursue a girl. Now, that was when I was a teenager. Now, maybe later in life, those functional gods, like, we change those gods out because it's an exchange for something. We make them our God. We sacrifice, we worship it, we pursue it, we're consumed by it because we want what it offers in exchange for us. And so for a lot of the times, a lot of people make, let's say, money that functional God. And it will, we will do so much to sacrifice, pursue, try to achieve and attain whatever that God offers us. And so he'll go into a little bit more of what the functional God saves us from.
And then if Jung is correct, and I believe he is, then the question of what should be at the top really exists as the paramount question. And part of the way the biblical narrative represents that or addresses that is by describing God in some sense as a literary character, as Northrop Frye, a Canadian critic, pointed out. And one of the things that's remarkable about the Exodus text is that the highest ethical spirit to which we're beholden is presented precisely as that spirit that allies itself with the cause of freedom against tyranny. And that's put forward as a prime ethical dictum. So if it's the voice of God speaking to you, so to speak, then it's going to call you out of slavery, maybe the slavery of your own mind, the slavery of external conditions, the slavery of the tyranny. It's going to call you out of that slavery into freedom, even if that pulls you into the desert. And that's really something to know, and I think something that's deeply true. All right.
Okay, so one thing he's trying to wrestle with, and I think this is where he's coming from, is Jordan Peterson is saying, like, there is a slavery or a tyranny, right? And those kind of go hand in hand. It's not exactly the same, but we suffer from some kind of tyranny or slavery. I'm going to use the word slavery here. You use the word tyranny. I'm going to use slavery. But if our functional God is sex, right, then the slavery that it's trying to save us from is probably something like loneliness, probably something like having a low self-value, or a need or a lack of love. And so when we pursue God as, or rather when we pursue sex as God, then we are then assuming that once we achieve sex, once we achieve that functional God, that will solve the slavery that binds our heart. And that slavery, and that's the tyranny of loneliness. We are enslaved to that. And what will happen is that, and taken from remember, I'm a Christian Forum pastor, taken from that perspective, if we attain that functional God, we will then find ourselves still broken and still enslaved, and that the promise of that functional God cannot completely liberate us from that tyranny or that slavery, that of loneliness or of lack of love or all of that. So let's take this as far as money goes, right? And let me switch this out. Thank you, Jordan Peterson. So if we pursue money and we say that is the highest thing, that's the perspective, that's what we try to achieve and attain, then we are assuming then that God, if we worship it, if we pursue it, if we sacrifice for it, it promises us something in return. And that promise is, let's say, status, let's say comfort, let's say security. It could be a whole bunch of different things, but money is that God for a lot of people, that functional God. And when we achieve money, we will find that we will still be lacking, that it is short-lived, and at best it's paper thin, because money can go just like that. And anyone with money will tell you that. Like that. Why isn't it that we always try to achieve more money? Why is it that we're all at the highest levels of achievement on earnings, we're still poor? And we're not grateful, and it happens all the time. And so what happens is, as humans and as sinners, as broken people, we are constantly trying to put a functional God in that top space. And so this is where I don't think Jordan Peterson is reading this book as a literary thing, because he's making references of, this guy thought of God as a literary figure. Well, it's a historical book as a literary figure. However, the book of Exodus goes more than just taking the themes of it, like taking the theme of a God saving us from slavery, pushes us into the desert to get us out of that slavery into the promised land. The fact of the matter is that actually happened. Okay, that actually happened, and there is an actual God that can save us from slavery. Now, in the book of Exodus, it is physical slavery. However, that manifests itself and shows itself off to having a higher foreshadow or retelling in Jesus Christ saving us from the slavery of sin. And so the book of Exodus is about a God who rescues his people out of slavery to have them live with and for him in the promised land. And he sets up rules and parameters, and that's a God that binds himself to his people and rescues his people. And that's what I think the book of Exodus is about. So it's not just a theme, and maybe he gets into that. I've only watched the first parts of these videos, and I'm excited to go through the later parts of it with you as well. Now, thank you so much for watching. Leave your thoughts on Exodus and what he thinks down in the comments below. I know this isn't going to be the most popular video, but this is something that I really like to cover is Bible stuff. So thanks so much for watching. Check out the next parts of Exodus, and I'll see you in the next video.